Welcome to LEWS podcast. Imagine having this internal superpower, something that doesn't just help you get through challenges, but actually transforms how you even see them. Today, we're doing a deep dive into building exactly that power, real solid self-confidence.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Our mission here is to really cut through all the fluff and pull out the most practical science-backed stuff from the material we've looked at. Basically, give you a step-by-step blueprint to build confidence that actually lasts.
And it's so important to stress this isn't about some people being born confident. It's absolutely something you build intentionally, step by step.
Exactly. So whether you feel kind of shy sometimes or you hesitate to speak up, maybe you just doubt your abilities now and then, this deep dive, it's really for you.
It really is a topic that touches, well, everything, doesn't it? Career, relationships, personal growth.
Totally.
And what's so interesting is that confidence isn't just this vague feeling. It's more like a learned behavior, a belief system, really, that lets you take action even when things feel uncertain.
Okay, that's a really key point right there.
Yeah.
We talk about confidence all the time, but what is it fundamentally? Is it just thinking you're amazing at everything, or is it deeper?
Oh, much deeper, and definitely not about thinking you're amazing at everything. At its core, it's the belief in your own abilities, your qualities, your judgment.
Okay.
But here's what often gets missed. It is not arrogance. It's not about trying to be perfect either. It's more about trusting yourself despite the imperfections, knowing you can handle things.
So trusting yourself even when you know you're not perfect, that's quite different from arrogance.
Exactly. It's an internal thing, that conviction, not just putting on a brave face.
Right. And it's not like a general feeling you have all the time, is it? Like, you could be super confident doing one thing, but terrified of another. Our sources mention different shades of confidence.
That's a critical point, yeah. Confidence is highly domain-specific. It really depends on the situation.
Okay.
The sources break it down into 3 main types, which is pretty helpful. First, there's social confidence. That's basically how comfortable you feel interacting with others. Big groups, one-on-one,
Makes sense.
Then you've got task-based confidence. This is feeling capable in specific skills, like public speaking or learning new software, maybe tackling a tough project at work.
Right, like being good at doing something specific.
Precisely. And the third one is emotional confidence. This is about trusting your own feelings, your reactions, and feeling like you can handle difficult emotions when they come up.
So you could be, say, a coding genius.
Yeah.
Totally confident in that task-based area.
Yeah.
But the thought of making small talk at a party, social confidence, might be really daunting.
Exactly that. Or like the example given, a student might ace math, feel totally confident there, but just freeze up during presentations.
That really shows how it's not just one thing.
It really does. Which naturally leads to the next question. Okay, if it's specific like that, what's going on underneath? What's the psychology? How do we actually build that belief?
And this is where it gets really interesting. The sources point pretty strongly towards Albert Bandura's theory. Self-efficacy. That seems to be the core idea, right?
Absolutely. Bandura's work is, well, it's foundational for understanding this. He really demystified confidence, showing it's not magic. It's built through specific types of experiences.
Okay, so how does that work? What are these experiences?
He identified 4 main sources where self-efficacy, which is essentially task-specific confidence, comes from. The biggest one, arguably, is mastery experiences.
Mastery. Okay,
Yeah.
Succeeding at things.
Exactly. Simply put, success builds belief. When you actually do something successfully, even something small, it reinforces the idea that you can. Your brain literally logs that success.
Huh. Like building evidence for yourself.
Precisely. It strengthens those neural pathways, makes it feel more possible next time.
Okay, so every little win is actually rewiring your brain a bit. What else?
The second source is vicarious experiences. This is basically seeing other people succeed,
Yeah.
especially people you see as being similar to yourself.
Ah, so if they can do it, maybe I can too.
That's the thinking, yeah. It gives you a sort of mental model, makes it seem achievable. Third is verbal persuasion.
So people telling you can do it.
Pretty much. Encouragement from others, genuine praise, someone you respect saying they believe in you. That can actually make a real difference to your own belief.
Okay.
And finally, number 4 is emotional states. This is about your physiological and emotional reactions, your ability to manage stress, basically.
How you feel physically and emotionally in the moment.
Right. If you can stay relatively calm, manage your anxiety in a tough spot, you start to feel more confident about handling similar situations in the future. It's about how you interpret those feelings. Nervousness doesn't have to mean I'm going to fail.
Wow. Okay. So past success, seeing others succeed, getting encouragement, and managing your own stress response. That's a really solid framework for where confidence comes from.
It really is.
So now that we've kind of unpacked the what and the why of confidence, let's get into the really practical stuff, the how. We've broken it down into 6 clear steps you can actually use.
Yeah, this is where we shift from just understanding it to actually building it. And like any skill, it takes intentional effort.
Right. So, step 1, start with self-awareness. Where do you even begin with something like confidence? Seems kind of big.
You start by looking inwards, but specifically. You need to reflect and pinpoint what specific situations or areas make you feel that lack of confidence. It's not about feeling generally bad, it's about identifying the triggers.
Okay, getting specific.
Exactly. And a really practical tool here is to literally write down your limiting beliefs. You know, those thoughts like, oh, I'm just not good at conversations, or I always mess things up when I start something new.
Actually writing them down.
Yeah. One source mentions someone realizing, I thought I couldn't be a good speaker, but that wasn't a fact, it was just a fear I had. Recognizing that specific fear is the absolute first step. You can't change what you don't even realize is driving you.
That makes a lot of sense. You have to see the pattern first. Okay, so once you've got that awareness, what's step 2? Because like you said, it's not just thinking, it's doing right.
Precisely. Confidence doesn't just magically appear from thinking positive thoughts. It's a direct result of taking action. So step 2 is take small actions.
Small action.
Yes. The key here is starting with small wins. These are manageable steps that push you just a tiny bit outside your comfort zone. Not huge leaps.
Okay, like what? Give me some examples.
Could be anything, really. Introduce yourself to just one new person at an event if that feels scary. Or maybe post one short video online if you're shy about being seen. Volunteer to lead just a small part of a meeting. Each time you do one of these things and it goes okay, you get that little dopamine hit, it reinforces the behavior, and you start building that mastery experience we talked about. It literally starts rewiring things.
That's like building a muscle you said earlier.
Exactly like a muscle. You don't start with the heaviest weight, you start small, and repetition builds that strength over time.
Love that. Okay, but when you're taking those actions, especially new ones, fear is often right there with you. Which brings us to step 3. Prepare and practice. How does that help?
Preparation is basically the antidote to the fear of the unknown. Simple as that.
Okay.
When you prepare, you reduce the number of unknowns. You get familiar with the task, maybe the environment, potential hurdles, and practice. Practice makes that familiarity feel more automatic, which dials down the anxiety.
Right, because it's not so alien anymore.
Exactly. The source had a great example. Someone preparing for their first big workshop, they practiced it like 10 times in front of a mirror.
10 times?
Yeah. And they said, on stage, I wasn't perfect. I was still nervous, but I didn't panic. The preparation gave them the grounding to handle it. That effort beforehand makes a massive difference.
Knowing you've done the work. Yeah, that's huge. But even with preparation, that inner voice, the critic, can still pipe up. Which is step 4, challenge negative self-talk. How do we actually fight back against that?
Oh, this is crucial, because that inner voice, it doesn't just comment on stuff, it actively shapes how we feel and act. A really powerful technique here is called cognitive reframing.
Cognitive reframing?
It means actively catching those negative thoughts, like, I'm definitely going to fail at this, and consciously replacing them with something more balanced and constructive. Like, okay, I'm going to give this my best shot, and whatever happens, I'll learn something.
So shifting the narrative in your head.
Exactly. And another great tool the sources mentioned is keeping a confidence journal. Not just for worries, but specifically to track your progress. Note down moments you were courageous, even small ones. Reflect on challenges you overcame. It builds up this positive evidence bank.
I like that, focusing on the progress.
Yeah, and remember that little affirmation, I don't have to be perfect to be confident. It's about showing up, not being flawless.
That's a good one to keep in mind. Perfectionism can be such a killer for confidence. And speaking of help, it's often easier to do this stuff with support, right? Step 5, surround yourself with support. How important is our environment?
Hugely important. Confidence, or lack of it, can be surprisingly contagious. When you're around people who genuinely believe in you, who offer encouragement, who celebrate your wins, it really impacts how you see yourself.
So choose your company wisely.
Basically, yes. Actively seek out mentors, positive friends, maybe join a group or a club where you feel valued and supported. The sources had this great case study about Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
She joined a local speaking club, absolutely terrified at first, like could barely speak. But within a few months, because the environment was so supportive, she built up those small wins, got encouragement, and ended up winning a speech contest.
Wow, that's amazing. Just shows what a supportive space can do.
It really does. It gives you that psychological safety to try and maybe stumble without feeling judged.
Which leads perfectly into the final step, step 6. Learn from setbacks. Because, let's face it, things don't always go smoothly. How do we build confidence that can withstand failure?
This might be the most important mindset shift of all. Real confidence isn't about never failing. It's about resilience.
Okay.
It's about seeing setbacks not as proof you're no good, but as opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to adjust, to figure out what went wrong. You have to embrace progress over perfection.
Progress, not perfection. Got it.
Every time you stumble and get back up, you learn something invaluable. There's that great quote by Peter T. McIntyre. Confidence comes not from always being right, but from not fearing to be wrong.
Not fearing being wrong.
Exactly. It's the courage to try again, maybe smarter this time after you've fallen. That's where deep, solid self-trust really gets built.
Those 6 steps really lay it out clearly. It feels doable. But before we wrap that section, let's quickly tackle some common myths. Things people often get wrong about confidence.
Yeah, these myths can really hold people back. First, big one. Confident people are always fearless.
Right, like they feel no fear.
Total myth. They absolutely feel fear. The difference is they act despite the fear. They acknowledge it, but they don't let it paralyze them. Fear is just a signal, not a stop sign for them.
That's a huge distinction. It's about action, not absence of fear.
Okay.
Okay, what's another one?
Myth number 2. You have to be born confident.
Ah, yes. The you either have it or you don't idea.
Completely false. Confidence is a skill, like learning an instrument or a sport. It's developed through practice, effort, learning from mistakes. Nobody comes out of the gate fully confident. It's built.
Okay, so it's learnable. That's really empowering. And the third myth.
Perhaps the most damaging one. Confidence means never failing.
If you fail, you aren't really confident.
Exactly, the flawed thinking. The truth is, failing and then recovering, getting back up, that's actually essential for building robust, resilient confidence. Learning you can handle setbacks deepens your trust in yourself way more than just sailing through everything easily. It builds grit.
Failing is part of the process, not proof of inadequacy. Okay, busted. These myths really do mess with our understanding. To make it even clearer, let's touch on some real-life examples. People who really live this journey.
Absolutely. Think about Oprah Winfrey. We see the media giant now, but her early TV career had major setbacks. She was actually fired from an anchor job, told she wasn't right for TV news.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but she didn't let that stop her. She learned from it, used it to figure out her real strength, and built her empire. Her confidence was absolutely forged through overcoming that rejection.
Amazing. And Michael Jordan, too, right? The basketball legend.
The classic example, cut from his high school basketball team. Can you imagine? That could easily crush someone.
For sure.
But for him, it became fuel. He didn't quit. He practiced relentlessly. Used that failure to motivate himself to become arguably the greatest ever. His confidence wasn't from never failing, but from refusing to let failure define him.
These stories really drive it home, don't they? Confidence is built through the struggle, through the perseverance.
Absolutely. It's the journey itself that builds it.
So, bringing this all back to you listening right now, we've laid out this blueprint, these steps, busted some myths. What's the takeaway? This week, I really encourage you, take just one small step.
Just one.
Yeah, something that pushes you just a little bit outside that comfort zone. Maybe it's introducing yourself to someone new, maybe sharing an idea you've been hesitant about at work, or just speaking up a bit more in class. Remember, confidence isn't fixed. It's that muscle. It gets stronger every single time you show up, every time you take even a tiny, brave step.
And maybe leave you with this thought to chew on. What if the biggest thing holding you back from whatever you want to achieve next? What if it isn't really a lack of skill or ability? What if it's simply a lack of trust in your ability? How different could things look? How might your world shift if you just took that one first tiny, courageous step today? It's not about some massive leap. It's about starting. It's about that first step and then the next one.